It's funny how your life can change during an ordinary Tuesday afternoon session. I'm a psychologist, and I was sitting across from Sarah, one of my long-term clients, when she started crying about finally getting pregnant after years of trying. Something in me just broke. My name is Lark, and until that moment, I thought I had everything figured out. Great career, nice apartment in Boston, and enough disposable income to treat myself to fancy coffee without checking my bank balance. But watching Sarah clutch that ultrasound picture to her chest made me realize how empty my own life felt. "I never thought I'd feel this complete," Sarah said, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "Like everything finally makes sense, you know?" I nodded professionally while my throat tightened. I'd spent so many years helping others work through their emotional struggles that I'd completely ignored my own desires. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted a family. Not someday, not eventually, but now. After Sarah left, I sat in my office staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Mari, my best friend since college. I called her back, needing a distraction from my existential crisis. Finally, Mari answered. "I've been trying to reach you all day. Remember my cousin's friend I told you about? Alden? He's in town this weekend in Dash." "Mari, stop." I pressed my fingers against my temple. "I'm not interested in another setup. Just hear me out. He's successful, charming, and actually looking for something serious. Plus, he's got this whole silver fox thing going on." I almost said no. I should have said no. But Sarah's tearful joy was still fresh in my mind, and maybe that's why I heard myself say, "Fine. One dinner. Perfect. Friday at 7, that new place on Newberry Street. And Lark, wear that green dress that makes you look like a goddess." I hung up feeling both excited and uneasy. As a psychologist, I should have recognized those conflicting emotions as a warning sign. But sometimes the heart wants what it wants, even when your brain is screaming at you to run the other way. Looking back now, I wish I'd listened to that nagging voice of professional intuition. Because that dinner would set in motion a chain of events that would destroy my life as I knew it, and ultimately lead me to discover just how far I'd go to get revenge on the woman who tried to break me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me tell you about the night I met Alden Birch and his seemingly perfect smile. The first red flag appeared 3 months into dating Alden. We were having dinner at his place, a gorgeous brownstone in Beacon Hill, when his mother dropped by unannounced. "Again, darling." Edna breezed through the front door like she owned the place. Maybe she did. "Oh, Lark's here too." Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she set down a casserole dish. "I brought your favorite, sweetheart. The one you loved as a child." I watched Alden transform from the confident CEO I'd been dating into something else entirely. His shoulders hunched slightly, his voice softened. "Thanks, Mom. But we already ordered takeout." "Nonsense. You need proper nutrition." Edna began unpacking grocery bags I hadn't noticed before. "Chinese food is full of MSG. Remember your migraines?" "I don't actually get Dash," Alden started, but Edna was already bustling around his kitchen, putting away groceries in specific places, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. I cleared my throat. We were actually in the middle of discussing our weekend plans. Alden's taking me to the Cape. Edna's hands stilled on a box of pasta. "This weekend? But darling, you promised to help me reorganize the attic. I can't possibly lift those heavy boxes alone." "I did." Alden frowned. "I don't remember Dash." "You did. Last Sunday at brunch." She touched her chest. "My arthritis has been acting up, and you know how worried Dr. Stevens is about my heart." I watched Alden's face crumple with guilt. The weekend plans we'd spent an hour making evaporated in seconds. "Of course, Mom. I'll help." He turned to me. "Maybe we could do the Cape another time?" That night, driving home, I called Mari. "Did you know about his mother?" "What about her?" "She's intense. Always showing up, always needing something." I paused at a red light. "It's like she's marking her territory." "All mothers are a bit protective of their sons," Mari said. "Give it time. She'll warm up to you." But my professional training screamed otherwise. I'd seen this dynamic before in my practice. The enmeshment, the guilt trips, the subtle manipulation. Still, when Alden called later to apologize, his voice warm and sincere, I pushed those concerns aside. "Let me make it up to you," he said. "Dinner tomorrow? Just us." I agreed, ignoring the fact that just us hadn't happened once in the past month. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from Edna. "Alden mentioned dinner tomorrow. Mind if I join? There's so much about my son you should know." My stomach clenched. Something told me this was just the beginning of a very complicated dance. 6 months into our relationship, I found myself sitting alone at Giacomo's, our favorite Italian restaurant, staring at an empty chair. Again, Alden was an hour late for our anniversary dinner, and my wine glass was already empty. My phone buzzed. Not Alden, Mari. How's the big celebration? I swirled the last drop of Chianti. Wouldn't know. He's not here. What? Where is he? Before I could answer, Alden burst through the restaurant door, his face flushed. I'm so sorry, he said, sliding into his seat. Mom had an emergency with her medication. Talk later. I texted Mari, then put my phone away. What happened? I asked, even though I already knew the pattern. She got confused about her dosage. Needed me to sort through everything, call her doctor. He flagged down a waiter. I'll make it up to you. Like you made up missing my birthday? Or the charity gala for my practice? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Alden's face fell. That's not fair. Mom needs Dash. Your mother has a nurse. And a housekeeper. And 3 different doctors on speed dial. I leaned forward. But somehow, every time we have plans, there's an emergency only you can handle. You don't understand. After Dad died, Dash. I understand perfectly. I'm a psychologist, remember? I pulled out my phone and showed him my screen. Look at these texts from your mother. All from today. He scrolled through. Feeling dizzy, might need help. The stairs look so dangerous. Remember how you used to hold my hand when you were little? She's lonely, he defended. She's manipulating you. I took back my phone. And you're letting her. The waiter approached with menus, but I stood up. I can't do this anymore, Alden. I need you to choose. Either we get couples therapy to work on boundaries with your mother, or what? His voice hardened. Or I walk away. He stared at me, then pulled out his phone as it buzzed. His face changed when he read the message. Mom's fallen. She's not answering her phone now. My stomach dropped. I knew with absolute certainty that Edna was fine. Just like she'd been fine after all her other convenient emergencies. Go, I said quietly. But don't come back until you're ready to choose. As he rushed out, leaving me standing alone in the crowded restaurant, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about saving a relationship anymore. This was about revenge, not just against Edna, but against every manipulative thread she'd woven into her son's life. I sat back down and ordered another wine. It was time to stop playing nice. After all, I understood human behavior better than most, and I knew exactly how to use that knowledge to my advantage. Little did I know, Edna was about to teach me just how deep manipulation could go. I should have known something was wrong when Edna insisted on coming wedding dress shopping. Mari tried to warn me, but I was still playing the role of perfect future daughter-in-law, desperate to make it work. That neckline is far too revealing, Edna said, circling me like a shark as I stood on the boutique's platform. And white, at your age. The bridal consultant's smile tightened. I caught her eye in the mirror, sharing a moment of silent understanding. I think Lark looks beautiful, Mari said from the couch. The dress is perfect. Oh, but you haven't seen the one I picked. Edna gestured to the consultant. The traditional one we discussed. Oui. I turned around. When did you dash? The consultant returned with a high-necked, Victorian-style gown that looked like it belonged in a museum. Or a funeral. I took the liberty of putting down a deposit, Edna said, beaming. Alden showed me your joint account, and I knew you'd love it. The room spun. You accessed our account? Darling, someone needed to take charge. You're so busy with your little practice, and these decisions are crucial. She touched the lace sleeve. This is what Alden's father's mother wore. It's tradition. Mari stood up. Lark, can we talk outside for a minute? But before I could move, my phone buzzed. A text from my bank. Payment processed. $12,500 to Forever Memories Bridal. You already bought it? My voice cracked. Without asking me, Alden agreed it was best. Edna's smile turned sharp. He knows how indecisive you can be. Remember the Christmas party venue? The Christmas party I'd planned at my office, which mysteriously got double-booked with Edna's church function. The one Alden had to attend because family comes first. Mari grabbed my hand. This is insane. You need to call Alden right now. I tried. It went straight to voicemail. Then Edna's phone chimed. Oh, that's him, she said, reading the message. He says to trust my judgment. I'm like a second mother to you already. Something inside me snapped. I stepped off the platform, still wearing the dress I'd chosen, the one I loved. No, I said quietly. You're not. Excuse me? I said no. I turned to the consultant. I want to see the receipt for that dress. And I want to know exactly when it was purchased. Edna's face paled slightly. That's hardly necessary, Dash. Actually, it is. I pulled out my phone. Because Alden and I didn't open that joint account until yesterday. The silence that followed was deafening. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a dress. This was war, and Edna had just shown her hand. The night before our wedding, I found myself alone in our apartment, staring at my phone. Alden wasn't answering my calls. Again, this time, Edna had supposedly fallen down the stairs, 2 hours before our rehearsal dinner. Mari paced behind me, still in her maid of honor dress. This is the third emergency this week. First her heart palpitations during the cake tasting, then the dizzy spell at the venue walkthrough, and now this. My phone buzzed. A text from Alden. At the hospital with Mom. She's asking for you. Says she needs to tell you something important before tomorrow. Don't go, Mari warned. It's another trap. But I was already grabbing my keys. Maybe it was the psychologist in me, still believing people could change. Or maybe I just needed to see for myself how far Edna would take this. The hospital corridor was quiet when I arrived. Too quiet. I found Alden in the waiting room, his head in his hands. Where is she? I asked. He looked up, confused. Who? Your mother. The one who fell down the stairs. Oh, right. They're running tests. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She was really upset about the seating arrangement changes you made. Said it triggered her anxiety. The changes she made to my seating arrangement, I corrected. Without asking me, a nurse walked by, and I caught her attention. Excuse me, could you tell me which room Edna Birch is in? She was admitted for a fall. The nurse checked her tablet. I'm sorry, we don't have any patient by that name. My world tilted. I turned to Alden, who was suddenly very interested in his phone. Let me guess, I said quietly. She's at home. He nodded. And there was no fall. Another nod. And you knew this when you texted me to come here? His phone buzzed. Edna's face lit up the screen. You should answer that, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. She's probably wondering why I'm not at her house instead of here, ruining her perfect plan to derail the rehearsal dinner. Lark, please dash. No. I held up my hand. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to marry you. But right now, I'm standing in a hospital, dealing with another one of your mother's fake emergencies. While 60 people wait at a dinner we planned for months. His phone kept buzzing. Answer it, I said. Tell her she won. Tell her I finally understand that there will never be room for me in this marriage. It'll always be you, her, and whatever crisis she invents next. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Alden? Don't bother coming home tonight. I'm sure your mother's guest room is already prepared. As I walked away, I heard him answer his phone. Hi, Mom. Sometimes the biggest betrayals come in the smallest moments. And sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about walking away and letting karma do its work. I should have known something was wrong when I couldn't find my first-class boarding pass for our honeymoon flight to Bali. The gate agent frowned at her computer. I'm sorry, Mrs. Birch, but you're in 32E. Economy. There must be a mistake. I showed her my marriage certificate, required for the name change on the ticket. I'm with my husband, Alden Birch. Yes, Mr. Birch is in first class, 2A. She tapped her keyboard. Along with Mrs. Edna Birch in 2B. The world tilted sideways. I'm sorry, what? Your mother-in-law's ticket was upgraded last week. She lowered her voice. By Mr. Birch's request. I stood there, wedding ring suddenly heavy on my finger, as other passengers pushed past me. Through the terminal windows, I could see our plane waiting. 3 days ago, I'd walked down the aisle. Now I was being relegated to economy while my husband sat in first class with his mother. On our honeymoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Alden. Mom had another anxiety attack about flying. Need to stay with her during takeoff. Meet you in Bali. I walked to the first-class lounge. The attendant tried to stop me, but I pushed past her. There they were, Alden and Edna sharing champagne. She saw me first, her smile sharp as a knife. Oh dear, she said. Are you lost? Actually, I found exactly what I was looking for. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Tell me, Edna, how long have you been planning to come on our honeymoon? Alden stood up. Lark, don't make a scene, Dash. A scene? I laughed, the sound hollow. Like the scene your mother made at our wedding when she announced she'd be joining us in Bali? Oh wait, she didn't. Because you both kept it secret. Darling, Edna purred. Alden needs me. The flight is 12 hours, Dash. The flight is 12 hours of you making sure I understand exactly where I stand in this marriage. I turned to Alden. And you let her. Security was approaching. I could see them from the corner of my eye. But I wasn't done. You know what the funny thing is? I held up my phone, still recording. I'm going to send this video to every single wedding guest who gave us money for our romantic honeymoon for two. Let them see exactly what their gifts paid for. Edna's face paled. Alden reached for me, but I stepped back. Enjoy first class, I said. I'll be filing for divorce from economy. As security escorted me out, I heard Edna say, "Don't worry, darling. Mother will take care of everything." And finally, I understood. Sometimes rock bottom is exactly where you need to be to see the truth. I didn't board the flight to Bali. Instead, I found myself in a quiet corner of the airport bar, my wedding ring sitting like a dead weight on the napkin in front of me. That's where Edna found me. "I knew you'd be here," she said, sliding onto the stool beside me. "Drowning your sorrows? How predictable." I didn't look up from my untouched wine. "Shouldn't you be boarding?" "Oh, I just wanted to make sure you understood something." She leaned closer, her perfume cloying. "I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself." "Really?" I turned to face her. "Tell me, Edna, how many other women were there before me?" Her smile faltered. "Just slightly." "That's right. I did my research. Called your church, spoke to some lovely ladies who were very concerned about poor Alden and his string of failed relationships. All those women who just weren't right for your son." "They weren't," she snapped. "None of them understood that he was already married to you?" The bartender glanced our way. Edna's fingers tightened around her purse. "You think you're so clever," she hissed, "with your psychology degree and your little office. But you don't know anything about love." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "But I know about financial fraud. Like using your son's business account to pay for your mortgage. Or claiming medical expenses for emergencies that never happened." Her face went white. "How did you dash?" "I'm not the first woman you've driven away, Edna. But I am the first one who made friends with Alden's accountant." I slid my phone across the bar. "He was very interested in these transactions." "You wouldn't dare." "Actually, I already did. Check your email." Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone. I watched her face change as she read the message I'd sent an hour ago, complete with documentation of every fraudulent transaction she'd made using Alden's accounts. "He'll never believe you," she whispered. "He doesn't have to. The IRS will do that for me." The final boarding call for their flight echoed through the terminal. Edna stood, swaying slightly. "You've ruined everything." "No, Edna. You did that yourself. The only difference is, I'm not your usual victim. I'm a woman who knows exactly how to fight back." As she hurried away, I finally took a sip of my wine. My phone buzzed, a text from Mari. "Did you do it?" I looked at my wedding ring on the napkin, then at my reflection in the bar mirror. For the first time in months, I recognized myself. "Yes," I typed back. "And you know what? Revenge doesn't taste like wine at all. It tastes like freedom." 1 year later, I stood in front of my psychology class, wrapping up a lecture on family dynamics and boundary setting. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Remember," I told my students, "sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away." As they filed out, I noticed a familiar face in the doorway. Mari, holding up her phone with a news article displayed. "Seen this?" she asked, handing me the phone. Edna Birch pleaded guilty to financial fraud. Apparently, her son turned over evidence against her. I skimmed the article, noting how Alden had finally discovered decades of manipulation and theft. The psychologist in me recognized this as growth. The ex-wife in me just felt tired. "You know," Mari said, "your video from the airport lounge went viral in certain circles. There's a whole support group now for women who've dealt with similar situations." I packed up my lecture materials, thinking about all the emails I'd received from those women. Their stories echoed mine. The manipulation, the guilt, the slow erosion of self-worth. "Professor Emerson?" I turned to find Ethan Hayes, my fellow faculty member, in the doorway. His daughter's drawing was tucked under his arm, the one she'd made during our last coffee date. "Ready for lunch?" he asked. Mari smiled knowingly and headed out, but not before whispering, "He's nothing like Alden." She was right. Ethan was different. He had healthy boundaries, respected mine, and most importantly, his only attachment to his mother was a weekly phone call and monthly visits. "Just need to drop this off at my office," I said, gathering my things. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Alden, Mom's sentencing is next week. Thank you for helping me see the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't see it sooner." I deleted the message without responding. "Some thanks come too late. Everything okay?" Ethan asked. "Yeah," I said and meant it. Just closing an old chapter. As we walked to lunch, I thought about Sarah, my client whose pregnancy had started this whole journey. She'd brought her baby to our last session, this tiny person who represented everything I'd once thought I wanted. But life has a funny way of showing you what you actually need. Sometimes it's not the family you dreamed of, but the strength to walk away from a toxic one. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about rebuilding yourself. You're smiling, Ethan noted. Just thinking about karma, I replied. And how sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. He took my hand as we walked, and I let him. After all, I'd learned the hard way that love shouldn't feel like a battle. Sometimes it's as simple as choosing yourself and letting the rest fall into place.